Welcome to the I've Created a Monster podcast, a weekly random chat where I chat about random things weekly. I am your host, Roshini, also known as Glamazini out here on these internet streets. Okay. And as always, I am live with my patrons. To be live in the chat when I am recording this podcast, become a supporting patron at patreon.com/Glamazini. As always, I'm going to start with personal updates. Today's headband, if you are listening on audio platforms, is a fox, which you can't totally see because this hairstyle, the curls are overtaking the fox. But the reason I went with fox is two things. I was editing a short for the first episode and I was wearing fox that day. So I decided to bring it back. Okay, run it back. And I'm wearing a blue t-shirt and a lot of the headbands I have are warm colors. So it was either this, rabbit, or frog, and I went with fox. Okay, these are big decisions that have to be made for my podcast. Next, as a reminder, the podcast is weekly and simplified. This is working out so much better than the previous version, and I find myself looking forward to it more, I think because it is bite-sized chunks. I would like to say that I am going to be taking a break and ending what I'm calling season 1, which is everything up until this point, in a couple 3 weeks, because in my other world as Glamazini, I do a mid-year sabbatical for my son's birthday, like a work sabbatical. And so I have this episode and 2 episodes after this recording, and then I'll be on break until July. And finally, I'm going to introduce a subsection of personal updates that I'm going to call, Am I Monetized? The answer is no. Okay, this YouTube page at Monster Created is brand fresh new. And so I don't even know what the monetization requirements are because I've been monetized on my Glamazini page for decades at this point. Listen, 16, 15 years, I don't know. But over here, I went to the monetization page and it says that I have 88 subscribers, which is new. Hi, you guys. Thanks for the subscription. If you are watching on YouTube at Monster Created, hit the subscribe button and help me hit my goal. And apparently I need 500. So I'm not there, but I'm on the way. Okay. I also needed 3 video uploads in the last 90 days. And of course, I'm doing this weekly. We're on like episode 17. So I have that requirement. And then it says I need one of the following, either 3,000 valid public watch hours over the last year, which I don't have yet. I have 500 valid public watch hours, which I think is pretty good for 17 episodes. I mean, it could be better, but it could be worse. And then apparently I could also get 3 million valid public shorts views, which I don't think I've even hit 3 million valid public shorts views on my other platform. I've never checked. But since I'm putting up TikToks on the @Monster Created account over there, I just decided to throw them over here and see if they help me with my monetization. With respect to putting the videos on Facebook, I've kind of abandoned that as a monetization like dream. I'm putting the videos there still, and whatever money I make, I make. However, I'm just kind of focused on building this platform, expressing myself, which is really the entire point of this podcast, and having a good life. Amen. Amen. Next, I like to cover topics or questions that patrons give me on the docket in Patreon. I did not get any topics or questions on the docket in Patreon. And honestly, yesterday, I wasn't even sure what I was going to talk about, because I couldn't really think of something really pressing that was happening in the pop culture world that we all were focused on that I could say my piece about. So I came up with this. Hopefully you enjoy it. It's a piggyback and a continuation off of last week's video, and it's kind of something that's been on my mind, so we're going to talk about it. Next, rest in peace. I don't have any rest in pieces to say, although I did see that there was an actor in a show that is popular, but I don't follow it. I'll put his name on the screen, that was unfortunately murdered in I think it was a hate crime. I think he is a gay man, was a gay man, and he was murdered during a hate crime. I don't know all the details because I got my information from TikTok. Okay. This is not the AP, like I told you guys. I am not doing deep, hard-hitting research. I am a woman on the internet wearing a fox headband. Okay. But if that is the case, I will find out his name and I will put it on the screen on the video platforms, and rest in peace to him. And also, I hope the perpetrators of that hate crime, if it actually was a hate crime that occurred or just a crime in general, are brought to justice. Next, I'm only going to say one thing about the politics section because you know I hate talking about politics nowadays because just why? Okay. But apparently Muskrat had left the administration and wrote this whole thing and was like, I'm leaving, insert the violence or whatever. And then I open up Yahoo today, and Yahoo is like, Muskrat doesn't like -92's funding bill. And so he's over there on X, Twitter/X, ranting about it. And all I can say is, apparently there is fighting in camp, which is not in camp anymore. It's out of camp. And I don't, I mean, what are we supposed to do with that? Next. And now to my favorite part of the podcast, pop culture. The first thing I wanted to say is, I think last week I brought up that people were dragging Tabitha Brown to and fro about a video she put up about supporting Black book authors who were not getting their numbers and therefore not making the New York Times bestseller list per her video because of the Target ban. That was what her video was about. And in last week's video, I said I didn't see any problem when I went back and watched Tabitha's video, so I didn't understand why people were dragging her, and I went about my business. Since then, I have gained a lot more understanding of why people would be upset with Tabitha. And instead of trying to explain it to you, I'm going to let a very well put together video explain it to you for me. The creator on YouTube is L Empress of Ease, the letter L, and then the words Empress of Ease. If you type in L Empress of Ease Tabitha on YouTube, it should come up. Her video should come up. It has a picture of Tabitha on the thumbnail and a picture of Elle down in the corner. And she did a long, very nuanced, very thorough breakdown of what the issue is with why people were upset about Tabitha's most recent video concerning the Target ban and Black book authors. I highly recommend you go watch it. It doesn't mean that I have the same level of upset. I don't. Like I said, last week you could see exactly what my authentic feelings were, but I have more insight now because when you listen to people, you get insight. And this is going to go along really well with the conversation we're about to have about accountability. Next, there is a creator on TikTok. His name is Justin Scott, and people have been accusing him of AI. Not just any people, but red pill and manosphere men, which I described and defined for you last week using AI. I'm not going to describe and define it. You can go back to the previous video and hear what AI said the definition of red pill and manosphere men were, as well as what they mean by the word pandering. It was amazing, actually. However, Justin has come under fire by those specific group of unaccountable men, is what I'll say, because AI, not me, but also me. I concur with the AI. I believe it. Justin is a content creator who does like these rant videos on TikTok, right? So when he comes up on your page, he is just going. And he's a wordsmith, and it's a lot. There's a lot going on. And he's obviously reading off of something. He has notes, just like I have notes right now. I always have notes when I go live. I go live multiple times a week across platforms because to keep my thoughts where I want them to be and to make sure I don't miss anything, which is really what it is, to make sure I don't miss anything, I have like a outline bullet point sitting next to me. I'm not writing things out word for word, and it just helps me to keep my brain and get the topics out. So it's obvious that Justin is reading, and I've always thought he writes down his topic so he doesn't forget what he wants to say. He hits record, he lets her loose, and he shuts off the camera. Well, apparently, in an effort to shirk accountability yet again, this particular group of people have tried to weaponize the concept of him using AI to diminish his skill and his brilliance. Because this man, I saw his video yesterday, said he just turned 26. This man, listen, this man said he just turned 26. And this man has more wisdom in his content, the few videos I've watched, maybe like 10 or so videos I've watched of him, than many 40, 50, 60, and 70-year-olds combined. I was like, 26? Wow. Not because he looked older, but just because his brain, okay? And the thing about it is two things. One, I don't see the problem with Justin using AI. I also watched a video where he addressed this and said he's a writer. So in his mind, he categorizes himself as a writer. And he was like, I use AI to help me be my best. I'm not using AI to write the things. I'm using AI to help me be my best. in the same way that everyone uses AI to help be their best. And listen, I understand that, okay? Who has not whipped open Claude or ChatGPT nowadays? Anybody that's on the internet and done something in a small amount or a large amount. Now, if he was just using AI to say that that was all his writing, maybe you could have concern for it. But I find that sometimes people who say things like that to diminish a person's skill and ability are really just saying, I can't do that, so I don't believe you can do it. And I have experienced that with other people in my real life, where I have a friend who is a wordsmith. She really just has an amazing way with words. And it's actually quite shocking to a person like me who is not as skilled in my estimation as she is. And sometimes it does feel like there's no way you came up with that off the rip, like off the top. You had to have pre-thought or done something. I'm talking about before AI. It was like you had to have pre-written that. There's no way you just said that off the rip. But some people have an off the rip ministry. Now, I will say this. I watched Justin and Deontay Kyle, who is the originator of this conversation that I'm piggybacking off of from last week, go live. They went live on TikTok. And let me tell you something. The Justin that you see on his pre-recorded videos is the Justin I saw on the lives. He was rapid fire in real life. That man his brain was braining like that in real life. His vocabulary was vocabularying like that. His metaphors were metaphoring. So I just see the accusations and the failure in my mind, but the attempt to weaponize that Justin uses AI as a way to diminish him in some way, as another way to shirk accountability, right? People will dip and dive. They'll do everything except be accountable for anything. All right. Which moves us to today's topic, accountability in 5. Okay. I have to say this. I'm using this as the title and thumbnail of this video. And once again, like I said last week, this topic might not have been a topic I would have covered in the past. Actually, it's not a topic I genuinely want to talk about. I think it's interesting, but it also can attract that horde of low accountability humans that I talked about, red pill and manosphere people. And for the most part, I like to protect my peace on the internet, and I like to curate the people that I interact with. And I don't tend to do things that draw those people to me, because who wants it? I mean, they're miserable, right? And I don't want to be miserable with them. So it's an act of protecting my peace. However, because I didn't know what to talk about, and because this was an interesting conversation with me last week, and because I have a little bit more to say, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I use the accountability in 5 phrase because I thought it was funny. Now, what is accountability in 5, Roshini? That don't make no sense. I got to put my hand up when I say it. So I don't know. Let me tell y'all full out, I'm going to mess this up. And if somebody watches this in the comment, you're going to have way more context than I ever would. And honestly, more context than I want. All right. What I know is Shannon Sharp is always saying Lakers in 5. Okay. Shannon Sharp is always saying Lakers in 5. It's funny. It's catchy, it's all this stuff. And to my very limited non-sports consuming understanding of it, it is Shannon's way of saying that the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers, are predicted to win the playoff series in 5 games. That's what I understand. So it's just like a thing he keeps throwing in. He'll be like, I don't even know. I don't know the thing, but there's always like a multiple list, and then he'll say Lakers in 5. So it'll be like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Lakers at 5. That's a horrible example. But listen, that's all I know. So that's where accountability in 5 comes from. Okay. Because I've heard other people saying it, and I've actually heard Deontay Kyle say it. He'll be like, something, accountability in 5. Okay. So he's drawing from Shannon's phrase, which I don't even know if it's Shannon's phrase. It could very well be somebody else's phrase. It's just Shannon's only one I've heard saying it. Okay. So that's where accountability in 5 comes from. Who is Deontay Kyle Roshini? Last week, I told you guys that there was a popular podcast. Oh, sorry. Deontay said to call him award-winning, because apparently he has won an award since then. So the award-winning podcaster, Deontay Kyle of the Grits and Eggs podcast, did something a week or 2 ago, went viral, calling men to accountability, and they said he was pandering. That was basically what last week's video was about. Since then, there has continued to be amazing conversation. I've seen conversations on all sides of the spectrum. I've seen men who are not accountable arguing for their lack of accountability. I've seen lots of more accountable men popping up on my timeline, which I referenced last week. Loving to hear that. I've seen more of Deontay. I've seen women, mostly majority, the 92%, okay, of women black and white. I've seen mostly black women though, totally talking about how they understand the concept of accountability. And I've seen two, which is, if you take 92% and you subtract it from 108%. So I've seen a dusting of two black women siding with the men, which, I mean, you see hundreds of whatever. Anyway, so that's the conversation we're going to talk about today. And I want to lead this entire conversation based off of a question that was posed by a TikTok user whose screen name is regularhuman40 and his name on the screen is Chris. Okay. Chris said, and I quote,
I got a question for the woman, man. What could we as men, like seriously, this is a serious question. What could we as men do to make coexisting with us better? Like, what can we do to make this a safe space?
I saw Chris's video yesterday and I was like, what a genuine question. So I went in the comments and I answered. And I looked at a few of the answers and people gave good answers. And this is what I told Chris, listen, in like 15 seconds. Okay, this is not a deep theoretical, like I said, this is not a scholarly, we are not on Harvard campus doing scholarly work right now. Okay, we are on the internet. So follow with me. So in the TikTok comments, I said, go to therapy, learn emotional regulation, hold yourself and other men accountable and other people accountable in general, right? And protect us. That's what I put in his comments. And then when I was thinking about what to talk about today, I was like, I'm going to actually talk about what I put in Chris's comment section as a way that men genuinely who are asking, because this man asked, okay, he asked. And I'm like, I'm going to answer accountability in 5. That's not how you use it. I know. I can't think of the rhythmic 2 or 3 things beforehand like Shannon does. I don't know. Okay, I'm unfamiliar. So let's just brace with me. Okay. So the first thing Chris says is he's trying to figure out what men as a group, right? And if you're a person who, let me say this, if you're a person who has a binary thought process, if you're a person who has a trigger trauma response to the concept of accountability because you don't know the difference between blame, fault, and accountability, which I'm going to go into in a little later. If you're a person who's just committed to misunderstanding, if you're a person who has not learned emotional regulation, like I said, who doesn't go to therapy, who doesn't hold yourself and other people accountable, who does not see the need to protect other people because you've never felt protected, and you have a very you don't do well with non-concrete thinking and you don't do well with non-binary things, this is probably going to be a very triggering conversation for you. I'm just going to put that out there, okay? I'm not blaming you for anything. I just understand that everyone can't understand everything. There was a woman I saw on the internet that said, and I don't know her name or else I would put her name on the screen. She was like, y'all, everyone can't go with us. And I promise you, when I saw her say that, it actually brought a tear to my eye because I spent a lot of my life around some men who have said these things to me before the concept of red pill, before Kevin Samuels came and started talking crazy to them and gathering them up and milking them for money because of similar pain. Before he did all of that, there are men who feel these ways and are saying these things because of reasons. Okay, let's just put it because of reasons. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about my concept of going to therapy, learn to emotionally regulate, hold yourself and other people accountable, especially men, and protect. Okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. Now let's say this. I love a go to therapy. I'm not wearing my go to therapy shirt right now. I'm wearing Prayed Up and Hydrated. But one of my top selling shirts in my shop.glamazini.com, hello plug, is the Set Healthy Boundaries, Go to Therapy, Hydrate, and Mind Your Business. Okay. I think work your goals, go to therapy, hydrate, and mind your business. Why? Because I have been a proponent of therapy for many years. Yes, many years. It is actually Mental Health Awareness Month this month, to my understanding. And so if you listen to me on my other platforms, you will know that in the past and even in the recent present, I have had a major depressive disorder diagnosis. Okay. I had it happen early on. Then I had a therapist kind of come against it and be like, maybe that's not what it is. And then I recently had the ADHD psychologist who did my ADHD evaluation put on the document that she also thinks that I have major depressive disorder, which I was like, rude, ma'am, because nobody asked you. Plus, I already know that. I also have a post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis, okay, from abusive and neglectful relationships in my life. And we'll just put it at that, okay? So you can imagine the reason why I can say that so easily is because I have been in contact with mental health professionals for most of my adult life. Because as I got older, especially in college, things were not turning out the way I wanted them to. Mental health was not where it needed to be. And back then, I didn't even have the vocabulary for it. So I went and I reached out for help. I realized, looking back at that I really did not have a lot of the stigma and shame that so many people have communicated to me since about reaching out for mental health. And that is why I am one of the first Black Christian women on the internet to be putting up mental health content. If you go to my Glamazini page, there are videos that are over a decade about me going to the therapist and is depression this or that and mental health this and depression that, because nothing in my world said that it was something to be ashamed of. I have learned from putting that content on the internet and about being actually honest about what was going on with me, that is not a common experience, that there is a lot of shame and stigma in the whole Western society, but in the underlying black community and society, there's a lot of shame and stigma about mental health. I understand that now. Back then, I didn't know, and I just have never adopted the shame and stigma. You can also see that I reached out for help. And so I am a huge proponent of going to therapy. Even though I understand that therapy is not perfect, I have had several therapists across the years. And in the past, I just went to whoever I could go to. But over time, because I understood the type of therapy that worked for me and the type of person and therapist that I wanted to talk to, I have curated my experience to the type of therapist that I want to talk to. You get what I'm saying? So back in the day, I might have gone to like any old person. And then I realized, okay, me and white women don't work. Because the couple 3 white women that I've seen over the years, one of them had a worldview that I no longer have, but I'm not going to say that actually. I had it. I thought I didn't have it. I think I have it again because sometimes healing is coming back to yourself. I never really thought about that. And then the second one was trying to be my friend. And I was like, I don't think you're supposed to be my friend. I think you're supposed to be my therapist. So I had to get rid of her. And the third one, I would not be shocked if she voted MAGA, because the way she was talking to me in those sessions, I was like, something ain't right with this lady. And so I can't be in a therapy session getting therapeutics. Okay. But over the years, I have had other therapists that have been a great fit. And I have been a person that will quickly reach out for help because I like to get the best outcome. Okay. I'm not a person that just kind of like wallows in a victim story. Depression will make me want to wallow in a victim story. But because I have a depression diagnosis, I have a tendency to like pick myself up and keep going onward. And I have found therapy has been quite helpful. Now, therapy has not been the only thing, the end all be all of my healing work. Obviously, I am a certified life coach and I do a lot of modalities on my own, and I have tried all kinds of things. Like I said, when I figure out that I'm getting a result that I don't like in my life, I pick myself up, figure out what I need. And sometimes I need therapy and sometimes I need other things. So remember what I said. If you're not a person who's good with non-binary thinking, okay, with abstract thinking, you might be like, therapy ain't gonna do it for me. Therapy is one tool in the toolbox. In the same way that you might go to your doctor, but you will also drink water every day. You will also take supplements. You will also go to the gym. You will also get massages. Like, it's one piece of the puzzle, but you're not going to not go to the doctor. You see what I'm saying? Therapy is like going to the doctor. So the first thing that I think that men who are trying to heal, because I keep saying on my other platforms, this might be a crossover. Okay, a crossover between the two platforms today. On my other platforms, my framework for my coaching membership is called How to Heal. So this is the work that I do, except I do it with Black and West Indian women. Okay. So what I would say for men is to ask for help. And the reason I would say to ask for help and to go to therapy is because generally speaking, which means not everybody, but generally speaking, and much more of a percentage than women, men are socialized to some really wonky things when it comes to healthy and healed behavior. And in the evolution and the transition that we're in right now, from what was acceptable and what will be acceptable moving forward, men are behind. Breathe. Okay. I mentioned, I think last week, that during one of the Exodus Summit online conferences, Stephanie Perry, one of the founders asked Dr. Joy Harden Bradford, who is the founder of Therapy for Black Women, why men are so horrible. And Stephanie was asking it tongue in cheek and as a joke, but Dr. Harden Bradford answered her honestly. And she said, men are behind, they're not doing the work. And women are. Men are behind, they're not doing the work. Women are. And so where we are right now, I feel like one of the first things that men can do to make life a safer space for women is to put on their oxygen mask first and go to therapy. Okay? Go to therapy. Let me tell you another reason why I know that this is necessary. I put in accountability in 5 in Google. And I pulled up a video, and the comment section of that video was full of non-accountable men. It was men looking at a clip from a Deontay Kyle video where he gave a metaphor of, to make them hopefully have a better understanding of what he's talking about when it comes to accountability. And there were all these men in the comments rebutting him. And I looked at their rebuttals. I read them because I don't stay in siloed spaces of thought intentionally. I do as a way to protect my peace, but every once in a while, so I know I'm not in a siloed space of thought, I like to go over to opposing thought processes and see what people are talking about because they might actually have a good point. And I went over there and I read the comment, and what I saw was binary thinking, unrecognized pain for themselves and from others. Like nobody's ever recognized their pain. Therefore, they don't think they have to recognize other people's pain. Very, like inability, how do I say that? An inability to grasp, an inability or a lack of desire to, let me put that in, an inability or a lack of desire to grasp a higher level concept and instead focus on the specific example that was given, which is why I said, if you struggle with concrete versus abstract thinking, higher level, complex thoughts versus like narrowing in on stuff, this might be a difficult conversation for you to have because you might just immediately be triggered and be like, I don't like that example, right? And a few other things in there that I know, not I think, that I know if the men in that comment section were in regular and consistent therapy settings, a lot of that fog of comprehension that they are intentionally put in by a system. Okay, now I got my tinfoil hat on. But there's a fog of comprehension that they are intentionally put in so that they can't move forward, right? And so it's not foggy for me. It's crystal clear for me, but I've also lived a life of therapy and I'm also a woman who's doing the work. And so there's a higher percentage of men that aren't going to these therapeutic spaces. And a lot of the things that are commented on these videos would not be commented by a man that was in therapy. That's what I would say. And so unfortunately, there's just a higher percentage of them. Okay. There's just a higher percentage. And that breaks my heart. I think last week I said, listen, I might not want my milkshake to bring the red pill and the Menace Fair boys to the yard, but I'm rooting for y'all because most of y'all are black men and I'm rooting for everybody black. I'm rooting for you, my brother. Now you might need to stay over there because you're unsafe. Okay. I'm rooting for you over here. Okay. And if you watch this video, there might be like 8,000 people who hate it. Listen, wouldn't that be nice if I had 8,000 views on this video? Did you hear me say I'm trying to be monetized? Hit the subscribe button. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, there'll be all these people who might hate it, but because they aren't skilled enough. And I mean that very literally, because I believe some of the things that you learn in therapy, some of the most important things you learn in therapy are skills. They don't have the skills. Nobody modeled it to them. Their parents didn't give it to them. Their peers can't give it to them because they're in the same echo chamber with people saying the same ridiculous thing, getting the same bad outcomes, but they won't think about what they can do to get out. They're not that forward thinking thing that I said. It's like a very crabs in a barrel. They're just all doing this thing. And a lot of that thing can be healed, or the foundation of it can be healed by removing that fog of comprehension so that you're not reading things. I read those things and I think there is no way that there are adult men writing that. It sounds almost like children writing it to me. And I say that just from like a literal, like, it's very like immature. So the first thing I would say is go to therapy. Okay. The second thing I told Chris was learn emotional regulation. And to give an example of this, I'm going to read another video by a white man, who in his bio, it says he's a pastor I don't know. It says Pastor CT. I don't know what CT means. And his screen name is TC Burke J, whatever that means. Okay. And this is exactly what I mean by learn emotional regulation. Okay.
Teaching men how to regulate their emotions is crime prevention. Teaching men how to regulate their emotions is suicide prevention. Teaching men how to regulate their emotions is addiction prevention. It's how we begin healing our society and how we raise children that don't retreat or explode anytime they have any feelings of discomfort.
Listen, pause from the quoting. I talk about that so much on my coaching pages. I say people either implode or they explode. And I always talk about sitting with discomfort. What you see in a lot of the people who are pushing back on the accountability conversation is they don't know what accountability is. They think he's saying blame and fault, and they think it's the same thing, which I'm going to get to that in a second. And because they feel like life blames them and life has always faulted them. And listen, if it's black men, they are rightful way to feel like they feel in some kind of way. The intersectionality of blackness and manness is whooping their tail in the same way that intersectionality of whiteness and womanness can often whoop their tail. That in between, I don't understand it. I just watch it from outside. That in between where you have some privileges, but not all the privileges in different spaces. Men and black men have the man, but not the race. And white women have the race, but not the gent. Listen, it be whooping some people's tail. And that's valid, okay? But also, it doesn't mean that you don't have privileges. It just means that you don't understand the dynamic that's going on. You have a much more complex dynamic than somebody like me who's at the bottom in both of those spaces and can see the whole thing clearly. And you, whatever. So, back to what he said.
Emotional regulation is not a soft skill. It is how adults live their best, most successful, and most thriving lives. Emotional regulation is the foundation of a society that doesn't dehumanize others, that doesn't see accountability as an attack.
That doesn't see accountability as an attack. This is not a black man that's in this Deontay Kyle conversation. This was some random white pastor that popped up on my timeline that does not see accountability as an attack,
but as an opportunity to be better. That doesn't see conflict will always lead to violence. Teaching men how to regulate their emotions is how we create a better world that teaches men and boys that accountability is a good thing and shows them how beautiful masculinity really can be. There is a reason that the best and most expensive elementary schools all have emotional intelligence and education as part of their curriculum, because they know this is how you create successful, happy, and healthy adults, by teaching them how to regulate their emotions when they are children so that they thrive when they are adults.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I said learn emotional regulation, because what I see when a man is telling other men to hold themselves personally and other men accountable in a conversation about men. That's what Deontay was having. It was men talking to men about men doing men stuff, which is exactly what's supposed to happen. I'm just an observer. I'm just out here like this with my popcorn, okay? He's saying to you that it is not emotionally mature to either retreat, which is run, or implode, right? To flight response to any perceived harm that you think you're having, real or perceived, okay? Or to start boxing, right? The fight response. Sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, when you feel discomfort, if you can learn to regulate your emotions, you can go from the part of your brain that is trying to protect you to the prefrontal cortex. Now I'm crossing over platforms, okay? To the front part of your brain, which is the executive functioning. Okay. Men are always saying that women are emotional and men are logical. But when you are triggered and you are either retreating or you are fighting back, you are amygdala driven and you are not logical because you're literally cutting off access to the logic part of your brain. I believe that emotionally regulated people, men and or women, are logical, because to be emotionally regulated, you have to be able to access the front working part of your brain, the executive function. So when men say that, it's just another deflection. It's not what adults think. It's not an adult thought. It is a validly potentially stunted thought, but a skill that can be learned, because teaching men how to emotionally regulate can make them much more stable so that they aren't always reacting or running from perceived harm in comment sections. Okay. And now a word on the difference between accountability, fault, and blame. As I said 8,000 times, I'm a life coach. Okay. I've done videos about this. There's a video on my Glamazini page on YouTube that is titled, "You're Responsible for Your Life. Blame, Fault, and Accountability." If you want to hear me talk about this for about an hour, go there. I think on the thumbnail, I think I put the thumbnail says everything is your fault. You know, you got to put things spicy on the thumbnail to get people to click. But I want to read you something that's in one of my coaching courses about this concept, because it took me personally, I understand what's happening with these men who lack accountability in 5. I know I'm not doing it right, but I had to throw it back in there because I felt the same way back in the day when I was younger. Okay. I'm too old for that right now. Okay. I kept living and I grew up, but I just want to read what I wrote. Okay. Accountability, fault, and blame. Let me share what years of growth, healing, and straight up living have taught me about this whole thing. Remember, this is from one of my coaching courses. All three, accountability, fault, and blame, involve assigning responsibility, which is what I think the men who are reactive to Deontay Kyle and Justin Scott and anybody saying that they are accountable for other men, like what they're reacting to is they are hearing, "I'm to blame, I'm to fault." And they're just like, "I am not." Okay. That's what they're hearing. And I think that there's a nuance, there's a complexity that they are missing. And anybody who wants to be a healing man, like this man, Chris, had asked, what can we do to make safer spaces? We'll have to learn the skill of understanding this nuance. Okay. They all involve assigning responsibility. Listen to this. Fault and blame have a negative tone and often refer to the past and what happened in the past to us or through us. Okay. Fault and blame have a negative tone, and they often refer to the past, meaning what happened to us or through us, something we did or something that was done to us. Okay. So that's where we were either the valid victim or we were the perpetrator. And that's fault and blame. Yes. I believe that the men bucking up on this conversation, that's what they think is happening. And I think it's because, like myself, you're hearing this, they don't know what accountability actually means. And if they do, maybe there is an aversion to what it is because there's just they have never lived a life where they saw somebody be accountable and they've been trained in a system to avoid it at all costs. But hopefully if somebody's actually listening to this, trying to understand, they'll understand a little bit more. Keep going. Unlike fault and blame, accountability has a neutral, positive, and or powerful tone. Accountability is about agency. It's about your power and speaks directly to your responsibility over what will happen in the future. Let me read that again. Unlike fault and blame, accountability has a neutral, positive, or powerful tone, meaning you are in control of yourself. You have agency over your choices now moving forward. Nothing about what happened before this defines who you are. You get to choose who you are and create that. And it speaks directly to our responsibility over what will happen in the future moving forward. Yes, with fault and blame, we could have been the victim of a situation outside or within our control. And we may have even made poor choices. With accountability, we reclaim our power to choose and therefore create what will happen to us and through us moving forward, right? We stop being a victim and we start being a creator. We stop being a victim and we start designing and choosing who we will become, right? If you remember last week when the AI told me the definition of red pill, it said that red pill men, it gave me like this whole long list. But one of the things it said is they recenter male victimhood in conversations about patriarchy. There's literally no way that you can keep recentering your victim story and be a powerful creator. If all you ever say is I'm a victim, then you are not a creator. Now, here's the thing. I'm not in any way, shape, or form diminishing things that were done to Black men. I'm not. Listen, I get it. I get it as much as I can as an observer and from listening to you guys. I'm still saying that if you keep bringing your victim story back into the mix, then I think what you're hearing is it's your fault. You're to blame. I don't think that you're a powerful creator. You're not, because powerful creators are accountable. Leaders are accountable, even in spaces that men understand. People who lead on teams, people who lead in the military, people who lead are accountable for the group. You're not a leader. If you're saying I'm not accountable for them people, then you need to go in the ranks where you belong, because you're not living a powerful life of agency. And I think that most men want to do that. I think that most men want to like man up, you know what I mean? And they have an upside down view of what being a man actually is, because a man, in the sense that most men that I understand want to be, is an accountable person, because an accountable person is a powerful person that can create something different moving forward, no matter what happened to them. Right? Let's keep going. Think of it this way. Fault and blame are like looking in a tiny rear view mirror, focused on what happened to you. Fault and blame. And expecting the car, which is your life, to go forward. Accountability, that's looking forward out of the effing huge windshield mirror in front of you and choosing where you're heading next, right? It's not about what knocked you down. It's about how you're choosing to get back up and walk in purpose. When we stay stuck in blame mode, we're giving away our power, acting like passengers in our own life. But you are meant to be the driver. Accountability is about recognizing that while you can't control everything that happens, you absolutely can control how you respond. Accountability is about recognizing that while you can't control everything that happened to you or through you, you can control what you respond or how you respond. Because you are powerful and you are a creator and you make things happen in front of you with a forward moving view. You're not always responsible for what happened to you, but you're responsible for what you do next. Reframing your thought process to understand that you have a choice. Adults are accountable for what we allow and don't allow in our world. If you don't like the results, the hardest thing to do is to challenge your role in it. The easy thing to do is to put the onus elsewhere, because that makes you a victim and you can blame others for the choices you are making because you perceive your perpetual powerlessness as their fault. Which is what the AI said about recentering male victimhood. Reframe your thoughts of victimhood, fault, and blame over to responsibility for making different choices, and watch your life change. Making different choices isn't always easy. Sometimes it's straight up uncomfortable, but comfort never created change, did it? Every time you choose differently, you're building a different future for yourself. Oh, you know what? First of all, I was spitting bars on that. Okay. Anyway, I thought this was back. Okay. I thought I was going to share the story, but it's actually above that. Let me say this so that you guys can hear that I actually used to have this exact same issue. It's this exact same issue. Okay. I've been exactly where you might be right now. Back in 2011, I was listening to this pastor on the radio and he said, and I quote, "Everything is your fault." And baby, I nearly lost it. Even when he tried to explain himself in my blog comments, I still felt all types of ways about it. And I still have that blog post. It's hidden, but there's a link to it in this course. And I can still go back. And he was trying to explain it to me. And he was doing a very poor job of explaining the difference between fault, blame, and accountability. But I got it now. He was trying to tell me that I have power to create something different. And I think that that's what the men that are listening to Deontay and the men that are fighting in the comment section on the accountability at 5 thing, totally misunderstanding and deciding to like center their victimhood. I think that's what they're hearing. And it makes me sad, because what it makes me realize, I'm going to go into on the last thing, which is when this man said, "What can we do to make it safe for you guys, women?" I said, go to therapy. I said, learn emotional regulation. I said, hold yourself and other people accountable. Learn the difference between blame, fault, and accountability, and be accountable. Hold yourself accountable to be a creator, a powerful creator of something beautiful and healthy moving forward. And you won't know if it's healthy if you ain't went to therapy and learned some emotional regulation. Okay. Not what you're doing now. That's unhealthy. Okay. Create something healthy and see the results in your life change. And then hold other people accountable. I'm listening to a book called This Is Strategy by Seth Godin. And somewhere in the book this morning, when I was listening to it, he said that a mark of maturity. Now, this is a white man. This has nothing to do with black people. This is a white man. That man was like, a mark of maturity is the more mature you are, the more you start gathering other people that you protect and keep safe and you consider. So when I see people being like, it's only me, my four, and no more, that is not a mark of maturity. That's an immature person. And that's definitely not a patriarchal man. I mean, I put the quotes up if you're listening on audio platforms, because I'm not saying you have to be a patriarchal man, but I'm saying, but if you want to be a man, and if you're arguing for your manhood, you might want to consider that what you are doing is the opposite of that. And that's why you're probably confused about why the men who are talking about accountability and all that kind of stuff are getting positive responses from women, because that's not what you're doing. Now, we could go into the whole conversation of how red pill men are actually getting their emotional connections from other men. And I think I talked about that last week about AI saying that it's about hating women, and they would have to listen. That's something you got to work out in therapy, because a lot of times it's more about what other men think about you and not necessarily what women think about you, which is why you'd be perplexed when you don't have the women coming to you positively and you try to blame it on everything else. And when people try to tell you, it's because you are being an immature, woman hating person who needs to go to therapy and doesn't know how to regulate your emotions and doesn't know the difference between accountability, right? Like, they're trying to tell you and you're just like, listen, go to therapy, learn emotional regulation, learn about accountability, and that'll help you. And the last thing is protect us. Protect somebody is to keep us safe from harm or injury. That's the last thing I wrote for this man that asked the question. And the reason why I said protect us, and the reason why it might be kind of difficult for the men who are not accountable to understand why protection is even a necessary thing, is I believe they might not have been protected. Which is why I'm not saying that I don't understand the victim story centering, because if your story feels like it's never been heard, you're going to go to other people with similar pains and they're going to be like, yeah, I have the same pain. Nobody never centered the pains and the hurts of a black man, right? And you don't even understand that centering of a harm story is like an okay thing, and protecting others is an okay thing because you were never protected, right? So I can totally see how without emotional regulation, without emotional intelligence, without a desire to come up high, I could see how that particular recipe creates a person who says the things that are being said. But accountability in 5, okay? When I become a man, I put away childish things. Sorry. I was trying to be nice on this video because trust me, I could really be bucking up and acting up because I really think a lot of this stuff is just exhausting and immature, and I'm breathing on 50s next. So like, why even have to have this conversation, right? Like sometimes you might just want to be like, some of these people can't go with us, leave them what it is and go. But anyway, we're here now. I'm not going to do that. Okay. When I become a man, I put away childish things. Becoming a man is a choice. It's not an age thing, right? It's an active choice to take accountability and create the man you will be. And so this Chris guy asks, and protecting yourself, but protecting others is part of manhood. Keep us safe from harm. And the first person you need to keep safe from harm and injury is yourself, which is why I said, go to therapy, put your mask on first, black man. And then you will understand that what you are perpetuating is a space of harm for the people who are socially below you in the hierarchy. Possibly because you feel like nobody's ever heard your story and that you've always been harmed. If you go and talk it out and learn your regulation and hold yourself accountable and surround yourself with other people who are doing the same level of healing work, you will begin to have your victim story that you're spraying all over people, and your pain has become your personality, and you're recentering, you're all over the place, and you're not an accountable grown up, right? You're like a child man. You will start to realize that what you're looking for is on this side of the healing choices, and that protection can be available to you, right? Unless you are just like a loose cannon, right? Part of the reason why you feel unprotected now is you possibly were valid. Listen, the black man story, I do not know. I didn't live it. Okay. I've observed it, and I'm raising a black man. Okay. I have a brother, I have a father, I have nephews. I have all of them, right? And I've listened to them. I've listened to people online. I've listened. And it's a valid, nuanced thing that I will never understand because, like I said, intersectionality be whooping people's tail. White woman, black man. It is a very strange place to be where you have some privilege, but not all the privilege. So you're up and you're down. I don't know what that feels like. And like I said, for some people, it really be breaking their brain. And I cannot totally understand because in the world that I live in America, they tell me black and woman is down. Okay, so I know exactly. And I always say the person at the lower part of the hierarchy can see everything. So I'm seeing everything, not everything with all the other categories. I'm just talking about race and gender. Okay, because there are other categories that I'm privileged in, like disability, like I'm a Christian, like, right? Okay, so when you have some privilege, like man, but not all the privilege, like black, it seems like for some people, they cannot comprehend that. They can't comprehend it. Go to therapy so you can start comprehending it. Find a therapist that understands being a black man. Put on your mask first. And then from that space, you will realize that protection is available for you from those of us who are willing to do that level of protecting, right? You show up, we show up. You show up, we show up. Okay. And that you protect as well. And that is part of making it safe for all of us, for all of us. For all of us, because you get to have safety, you get to not be harmed and injured, and so do we. And every single person who is in a higher position in a hierarchical system, at some point, their privilege has caused harm to the people below them, intentionally or not. It just is what it is. And when you understand that, I'll wrap it up now, you move through the world differently. And when you move through the world differently, you are less likely to cause the harm people are telling you, because people who act like they don't harm are the harmers. People who don't listen to other people who tell them what they did intentionally or not are the scary harmer people. If you don't want to be a scary harmer person in the space of manhood, accountability in 5. That's so stupid. This podcast is sponsored by patreon.com/Glamazini and the Black Women Healing Fund, a fund that provides financial support to Black women on a healing journey. I've also started using my Patreon to give more behind the scenes of being a content creator. So if you want to know more about being behind the scenes of a content creator and my coaching business, become a supporting patron at patreon.com/Glamazini. You also get to be live in the comments when I'm recording this podcast. And don't forget to show up, to speak up, to F something up, and create your own monster. Accountability in 5. So stupid.